You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
Amazing. So I'm here with the lovely Valerie Priester, who is the founder of Victorious Life Coaching. Welcome, Valerie. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to finally meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, no, I think we connected on Instagram probably because we have some very similar views, I think, on business and life and work and finding that balance and making it work for you. But before we dive into that topic today, could you give us a bit of a background as to what it is that you actually do in your business? Who do you serve? How do you help them?
Absolutely. So my business, Victorious Life Coaching, I serve women entrepreneurs and I really help them to, I like to say, get out of their head and get out of their own way and really create the business that they desire and the life that they desire, right? I am the believer that business and life goes hand in hand. And so how you do one thing is how you do all things. So I help female entrepreneurs to really get clear on what they want from their business and how to go after and really obtain that and then live the life that they want, the victorious life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's so true. You know, there's so many clues as to how you're living your life that then you can kind of look at, well, where is that also present in my business? And, the insights that you can learn from that, just incredible. Now, how did you actually get into this? Like, tell me a bit more about you and how you got started, because I'm sure you didn't just suddenly appear on the earth and start doing it. So
Not at all. Not at all. I actually got started by working with 5 women. So working in corporate America, I was a lead project manager for the largest medical center in Detroit, Michigan.
Wow.
And there were 5 women that were co-workers, and we started a Bible study at work.
Okay. Yeah.
And somehow, I always say somehow, but I know how it happens. I got elected to be the leader because I'm always elected to be the leader, right? And working with the women and doing our weekly Bible studies, and they were the ones that encouraged me to look into coaching because they said to me, you really help us to believe in ourselves and you help us to bring out that confidence that we know we have, but for some reason we can't find it. And through talking with you and working with you, they just ended up doing things that they never dreamed they would do, right? One became the leader of her women's ministry in a mega church. Another, of course, opened a business that she always wanted to open, but always felt like there was the fear, there was the doubt, something holding her back. And these women just, kept encouraging me like, you have something. We don't know what it is, but you have something. And you have a way of encouraging us and really helping us to live up to our full potential. And so we think you should look into coaching. Well, I had no idea what coaching was. None. I was like, coaching? And I said, okay, well, I'll take a look. And when I started to do my due diligence and really dive into looking at coaching, I wanted something that aligned with my core values, with my beliefs, and really what I wanted to instill and how I wanted to impact women. And so I started this journey as a Christian life coach.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
And it evolved, of course, over the years, as all businesses do, right? So through different iterations, I ended up being in the business side of things. And let me just say this, Jessica, I was kicking and screaming, scratching, hollering. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But my coach at the time said one thing to me that still sticks with me today. She asked me, she's like, well, who are the women that are coming to you? And at the time, it was women who wanted help with their coaching business. And they wanted to know, how do I start this coaching business? How do I get it off the ground? And mind you, I was probably 3 years in my business. And I couldn't figure out, like, why are they coming to me for that? Because I wasn't talking about business. I didn't feel like I knew enough about business yet because I'd only been there for 3 years, right? And I was like, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can coach them on growing a business because I haven't been here that long. And she said to me, so are you saying that you want to turn away the women that are coming to you for help? And that just kind of, put a wrench in my heart. Like, of course not. I want to help all women. So she really helped me to realize that they were coming to me because of what they saw. Like they saw my business, how I operated my business, how I showed up, how I presented myself. And they wanted what I at least had in that moment. And she helped me to understand that, sometimes we only need to be one step ahead to be able to help someone else. So
Yeah.
it's not always about I have to have reached this pinnacle of success before I can reach back and help someone else. And that really helped to clear things up for me. And I was like, okay, I'll try this business thing. And that eventually evolved into not just business, but more about the mindset piece. Because I think that was the root of my whole vein of existence is if I can help another woman to really understand that you have the power, you have the ability to be, to do, and to have whatever it is that you desire, then the sky is not even the limit for you. And so then the later iterations is going into business mindset coaching, which is what I love, 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 love. Because I know that this whole entrepreneur, whatever it is, whatever you decide to do, even if it's not entrepreneurship, whatever venture you decide to do, 90% of the game is mindset. And so that spoke to my heart. And that is what I have kind of stayed in that vein and made sure that that's what I'm helping women entrepreneurs to do.
Yeah, so good. Like, who knew it was just about mindset, really? Like, isn't it
something
crazy?
something that I think well, that's just how I think. How it is when we have the gift and we have the talent and we have this thing about us that I believe is our passion, our purpose, but we see it as that's just how I am. It's no big deal, but it is. Yes, it is.
It is.
Because not everyone thinks that way.
No, and like you can learn all the things that you want, but it's not necessarily about the learning. It's about how you're applying it, what kind of state you're in, and therefore how you're making those decisions. Because you can learn everything, right? And I'm not saying that you don't need to learn. Like we do need to learn the things, but there's this whole other piece that's so important. So I guess my first question is, why is it so important, do you think? You said it's about being able to find that business and life balance so that you've got the business that works for your life. Like, why is that important? Because I don't think this is traditionally the way people think about business or how the business world that we would have grown up in and would have been exposed to and sort of seen. I don't think that's really what I would have described it as. I'm not seeing a lot of those big leaders talking about well, have a great life and also have a great business. They're like, no, you've got 24 hours in the day, and how long are you spending sleeping, and you need to work, and all of this, and it's always about they're like, get it done faster. So tell me why is it important? What do you think about that? I'm just opening up.
I really feel it's important because even when I first started, I've had a lot of coaches. I believe in coaching. Coaching is definitely something I believe in. So therefore, I'm always a coachee, right? There's always been some type of coach that I've had helping me in my journey. And when I first started, I've had coaches that their whole way of being was the hustle and the grind. And, you got to work, 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 work. And it just didn't feel right. It felt like I was trying to force something. And it just didn't sit well with my spirit and just how I felt about business in general, right? I wanted my business to be something that not only brought me joy, but brings whoever comes into contact with me joy, right? And so when you're hustling and you're just grinding all the time, there's no joy in that. There's no joy in that. And so you have to find the place where you're really enjoying what you're doing in the business side, but then that also enables you to better enjoy life because now you have more freedom, right? Which is why we all got into business to begin with, right? I've never heard anyone say, I started my business so I could work 24/7. Nobody ever said that.
No.
Right? We all said, I want to start my business, or I want to be my own boss so I could own my own time and do what I want to do and all those things, right? Well, that only comes when you have a sense of balance between the two, right? So doing what you love, I know for me, never really feels like work anyway. And so I could easily like pour myself into this 24/7. And in fact, in the beginning I did. It was like it was all I knew. It was like I just want to be working on this business. I want to always be working on. And then I realized that it was a very uncomfortable way of building my business because it began to feel like it was a job. It was drudgery. It was overwhelm. It was burnout. It was all of that. And then it, just didn't feel right. And so for me, I think that's when I took a step back and I said, what I want is I want a business that I can build on my own terms, that I can create it the way that I want it to be, and it can fit into my lifestyle the way that I want it to fit into my lifestyle. And that's what I started even teaching my clients. It's like move away from the cookie cutter ways of doing things because not everything fits for you on how you want your business to be, right? And get in more alignment with this is how I want my business to run. This is how much time I want to spend on the business. And then there's life, there's family, there's friends, there's other things that make up who you are and how you get to really enjoy this life.
Yes.
That's why it's so important for me.
Oh, I just love what you said there because I don't think we can say this often enough. The cookie cutters, it's like, well, that worked for that person because of the way that they are, because of their business and how they're doing things. It doesn't mean it's going to work the same for you. But, how do you actually want to do it in the first place?
Right.
Are you just doing it because someone else said, oh, do it this way? But if it's not feeling like this is lighting you up and fun and how long is it really going to last? It just seems crazy to me. And, I think that one of those things that maybe a hangover from those older days where it was like, you've got to get to the place in your business so that then you can have the life and then you'll have the money and everything that you want then. But it's always going to be this place in the future, right? Because once you get to a next stage, then you're like, oh no, but I've got this giant business that's really complicated and it's taking a lot of my time because of all the choices I've made to follow these hustle hard practices that really sap your energy. So what you get there and you're totally stressed out, burnt out, you don't even have time to enjoy your life. And you probably find you don't have the time anyway because of the way you built your business. It wasn't to create the time. So
that's true.
I just feel like it's this whole new way of thinking that I love why you're bringing this to the podcast today because it's not about that. Why can't you be building your $1 million business while you're having the life that you want?
Exactly, because you can have them both, right?
Exactly.
And the other thing I see a lot of, and I even did it in the beginning as well. We tend to watch others and we think, oh, that's how I should do it, right? We come in with that mindset that that's how I should do it because someone else is doing it that way, and it appears that they are successful. Now, I say appears because that everything we see is not always what's really true behind the scenes, right? And so then we try a lot of different things. That's what I did. Tried a lot of different things that I saw others doing. And I just learned that I have to check in like with my spirit. How does this feel to me? Right? So a lot of ways, there's, as my grandmother used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right?
Yeah, of course.
So there are a multitude of ways to market, to promote, all of that. But if it doesn't align with your spirit and really feel like how you want to show up and how you want to be in this space, then it won't last and it really won't work for you. It will create more burnout. It will create, feelings of drudgery and just, I don't want to do this business anymore. And it's so funny how, like you said, we can get to that place where we build this massive business, but it's not in alignment with how we really want to live. And so then what do we do? Then what do we do?
Exactly. Oh my goodness. What other mistakes do you think you see people making right now that are really indicating that they need a shift, like that you would say, wow, they're not really living the business and the lifestyle on their own terms, so that they haven't got that. What are they doing right now? I think there's been a few kind of mentions of some examples, but I'm sure that you have some obvious ones.
Absolutely. One, and I just experienced this with a client a couple of weeks ago. One is the thought that this happens immediately, right? That everything has to happen quickly. And so we get into this space because, again, what we see on the outside is it looks so easy. And all I have to do is like do a masterclass or do a webinar, and then all of these clients are going to come, right? It's not that easy. I'm just
Yeah.
just honest. It's not that easy. There's a lot that goes into that.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times we see that and we think that that's going to happen for me. And so we'll do the masterclass or we'll do the webinar. And then when we don't get the outcome or the turnout that, maybe the big gurus are getting, then we start to feel like we're a failure.
Hmm.
And then we start to feel like, oh my goodness, this is not working for me. And so there's this thing about do it one time and all the clients come running.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where that came from, but we know
No.
that's not true, right?
Yeah.
It takes dedication. It takes really being intentional about what you're doing and not just throwing things against the wall to see what may stick, because that does lead to feelings of disappointment, feelings of, you're a failure, all of that. And so you get into this place where it feels like nothing is working. But a lot of that comes because you're not allowing enough time for anything to work,
Yeah.
right? You're expecting everything to happen like overnight, and it just doesn't happen overnight. And I see a lot of women entrepreneurs, coaches, coaches, consultants, service-based business. I see a lot of them expecting for that overnight success. And so they're hopping from one thing to the next instead of really being intentional about this is what I offer, this is who I offer it to, here's how I help them, and putting your focus and your attention and your time and even your money in that direction, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to trying, I'm going to try something for 3 months, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to try something else. I see a lot of that. And that just leads to disappointment. It really does. It doesn't lead you down a path of true success because you're constantly having to recreate something else.
Yeah. And you're just staying in that building zone, the development piece, which is actually the bit behind the scenes. So actually not really often putting something out there when you're back and you're back in there thinking, well, I need to try something new now. Then you're starting that whole creation phase again. And I think it's a bit like thinking about a horse running a race or any kind of race. But so you started the race with a horse. Now, why would you stop the race and then go back to the start line again? Like, how do you think you're actually going to finish this race if you're continually starting over or coming back and changing direction or thinking that you haven't got the right thing? And I 100% agree. I think that you're so right. Hey, I know that a lot of things are on demand these days. We've got this instant culture, what's on TV. I just want to watch it on instantly. I want to eat something great. I can go out to the shop and just buy it. I don't have to go and find it or whatever. And that is just, I think, not serving us in business. And it's like all those stories that we see on the internet. I know you and I are just like, you see so much of it, and it looks like it is instantaneous. And yes, you might find somebody who's had a miracle happen. We will call it a miracle.
But that's not normal.
Miracles can happen, but it's like, it's not even probably 1%. It's probably less than 1%.
Exactly.
Of all, it's like in the one out of a million people who are an entrepreneur might have that miracle experience, and they'll talk about it. But that's not normal. And
that's not normal.
And
I think a lot of it too comes from, like you said, what we see, and we have to remember that we're seeing the outside, right? Or we're seeing the highlight reel. We're not seeing all the work that goes into this, right? And we don't even have any idea how long it took for that individual to reach a certain level of success, right?
Exactly.
But typically, when we start businesses, most of us don't have a lot of funding, right? We certainly don't have an audience or a following yet. So we're having to start at ground zero, and that takes time in order to build that. But we see other people coming, we think they're coming on the scene and they just showed up and all of a sudden they're this amazing star at what they do. But what's behind the scene may be 10 years of building that business, but you don't see that, right? And so I think it builds this false expectation that all I have to do is hang my shingle out and say I'm in business and then things will go well. No.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, I don't know how many
years.
There's so many stories, and all you've got to do is just dig beneath the surface a little bit. If you're a bit like, I really like, it seems like they've had this amazing success. Well, just find out, well, what did they do before that? Because how many people would have been Facebook, and then, Instagram's now doing all of this stuff. So they've jumped on Instagram, they started doing reels or whatever. And then they're like, I've had this, like, whatever, I've got 10,000 followers in a week. It's like, but they already had an audience. They've just come onto a new platform and they've brought their audience with them. Like, you're forgetting that they're not starting their business from zero and everything from zero and having that kind of success.
And they missed that. You're right. You're right.
Or maybe they invested or they did a lot of things, right?
I mean, because let's face it, there is investing that will get you there fast. Right. But as I said, most of us, I know for myself, I didn't have funds to invest like that. I could not have like a $5,000 a month ad spend on anything. Right. I was starting my business from scratch. And the other thing is that, like, when I started my business, I was working a very full-time, stressful, although I loved it, career. So I only had, so much time to invest in building the business. I mean, in my corporate role, I would work 12 to 14-hour days, and then I'd come home and I'd spend another 2 or 3 hours working on my business. So this was a journey. This was, something that I had to work on every single day to build the business where it is today. And it's been 15 years. So people think, oh my goodness, this is going to happen immediately. It's just not. It hasn't for me. And for most people that are real and that I know are real, it didn't happen overnight. It didn't. But it takes that dedication, that commitment, and courage.
Stubbornness.
Stubbornness. Yeah.
Courage. Yeah, you've got to be able to keep
never going to give up.
And, as you said, like the mindset, right? Because there will be those times where it does feel hard, where there are things that are happening, and you've got to be that kind of person that can get yourself through. What are some of the things that the tools that you now have, or the resources that you have in yourself through this learned experience, whenever it starts to feel hard or slow, or that, things aren't moving the way that they would be? What are some of those things that you would instantly pull out of your toolkit? Let's call it your own one personal toolkit.
My own coaching myself, right?
Yeah.
One that I love is really a reflection exercise that puts me back in a mindset of, let me focus on what I've accomplished, right? Because so often as entrepreneurs, we go from one success to another. We don't spend a lot of time really celebrating ourselves, giving ourselves credit for what we have accomplished, and we'll just go from one to the next. And then when something doesn't work out, we put all our focus on, oh my goodness, that didn't work out. And we start feeling bad and, feeling low and having the low energy and negative thoughts and all of that. And so for me, when I find myself in that place, I always go back to my reflection exercise so that I can then focus on gratitude. Yeah. Because if I'm grateful for what I have accomplished, then I know that I can create the space for more to be accomplished. But that helps me to really get out of that space. And it's so easy to fall into that. It's so easy to fall into that. Working with clients, and you see them fall into it, and then it becomes, well, nothing's working out. Well, that's never a true statement. It's never a true statement, right? Because there's so many things you've done that have been absolutely amazing, and you've accomplished so many things, but we, again, tend to forget them when things get slow or things don't work the way that we planned. And so we have to spend some time really reflecting on our accomplishments.
That's so true. I think it's all the emotions that you kind of are so present to. You're like, oh, nothing's working out. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Let's have a look at the data. What does the actual data tell us? Because sometimes it's like, well, it is actually working. It's just not working out to the outcome that you wanted. But that's not a problem that it's not working. You just didn't have the volume coming in to get the result that you wanted. Now it's a different problem, right? It's not like, how do you change it all? It's more like, how do you get more people in? It's amazing. Now, I wanted to ask you, you've already kind of alluded to, well, not following the cookie cutter, really deciding what is right for you and choosing the things that light you up, that feel great. How do you do that? Because I guess if I'm thinking of somebody who's listening right now, they're like, well, do I have to go out there and try everything to find the thing that's mine? Because how long is that going to take? So what would you say to someone who's like, okay, I want to find the thing that is aligned to me so that I can put my energy and focus into that and forget about following all the shiny objects? So how do you find what's
often it is the thing that's right in front of you, right? The thing that you keep overlooking, the thing that, because remember, it was these 5 women that encouraged me in a certain direction. And I never would have, I didn't know it was coaching. That it's just what I do naturally is to uplift and encourage, right? So it's usually the thing that's right in front of you, the thing that you do without effort, without thought, right? And other people can see it. So one of the things that you can always do is ask others, like, how do you see me, right? How do I impact your life or your existence, or even your friends? Like, how do I impact our friendship, right? And ask them, because they can point out to you what you do for them, but you may not realize it. And that passion, that purpose that we have, we don't always see it. We just really don't see it because it feels so natural to us. And what we'll say is, well, everybody either knows that or everybody should know that. That's not true. That's your gift. That's your talent, right? Yeah. So everyone doesn't know that. And no one can do it like you. And so I think if you start out on that journey of trying to discover, like, what is the thing that I'm good at? What is the thing that I'm called to do? Ask for feedback. Ask your friends, ask your family, like, what is it that you see me doing? How do I impact your world, your life, right? And let them give you some words. Like when I did an exercise like that with one of my coaches years ago, and she had me ask all of my previous clients, like, what is the number one thing that they get from working with me? And it was confidence. It was confidence. I never would have thought that, right? But it was just what I do naturally, right? Is build their confidence and help them believe in themselves. That's just a natural part of what I do. Yeah. And that's always been the answer. Even when I'm speaking on stage or, delivering a workshop or whatever, the number one thing that always comes back is I have more confidence now. I can believe in myself. I can do things that I never thought I could do. Yeah. Well, who knew that could be a business, right? Who knew that I could do that as a business? Yeah. But it feels so natural. It just feels natural. And so I do it all the time. In fact, funny thing is I always, with family, and anytime they bring something to me, they always have to stop and say, okay, wait, I don't want Coach Valerie. Can I get... But it's so natural for me that the number one place I'm always going to go is encouraging and uplifting and helping you really believe in yourself and pull out that confidence. Yeah. Right. So it's most likely right there in front of you, right there in front of you.
That's so true. And I think that that's such a good piece of advice when you're even thinking, well, how should I market my business? What should I do? It's like, well, what do you feel already that's easy, that is aligned to you, that's kind of fun? Because it's probably that. And it might just be that you're dismissing it because you're thinking, oh, it's too simple, or well, I'm already doing it. It's like, well, what if you actually double down on that and really go all in and channel your energy into that instead of trying to morph yourself into all these different beings? Yeah, love that. It's so simple, isn't it?
I think a big part of this too is because usually, I know for me, when I worked with other coaches early on, and I had that same question, like, how do I know what my passion is? Like, how am I going to be able to figure that out? A lot of times we are directed to look at what they consider to be lucrative, right? What will bring them money. So, because I remember early on, one of my coaches said to me, well, I think the best thing that you have that you can market and promote and help people with is your ability to project manage, because I was a lead project manager, right? So certainly I can help with productivity and time management and budgeting and all that. None of that stuff lit my heart up. So I'm like, no. Sometimes people will try to lead you down that path because they're looking at it from the monetary side, as opposed to the side that really makes your heart sing, right? And that's what I'm always all about. It's like, what makes your heart sing? When you do something that you can lose time in doing it, you could do it, without pay. You could do it all day, every day. You wake up thinking about doing it. Yes. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's not the thing that you think is going to make you a lot of money. right? And in fact, if that's the reason you're going into it, you're going to be disappointed along the way because
yep, you're going to be chasing
that comes later. That comes later. Yeah.
Always chasing it. Yeah. Oh, totally. I think that was one of the first lessons that I had with the first business I started was, just always thinking, well, I need to find a hole in the market. I need to find something that people want. And it was all this external piece of looking into to try to find the thing. And with business number 2, I had almost gone down another path like that. But, it was a bit more aligned to what I really enjoyed and wanted. But it was that moment of going, hang on, I'm waking up in the morning thinking about marketing and branding, and I'm just thinking it all the time. It's what I've done in my career, so it was sort of always in front of me, but I never really thought I could do that as a business without it being an agency. And I'm like, I don't want to be an agency because then I've just got lots of bosses instead of just one boss. Anyway, it took me so long to kind of like get to that, but like you say, this is what I love, is helping people market their business and coaching them on the strategy. But it's sort of moved on so much from that because I realized it was actually, funnily, as a coach, you helping, you see the possibilities and encouraging people to be like, you can absolutely do this and believe in your self-worth and actually charge properly for your services. So, it's been so interesting, isn't it? Because, you can, it's really an internal discovery that you need to go on.
It is. That's the work. That's really the work, is the internal. Because, and here's something I believe, and I've always believed, the gift and the talents that we have, they've always been there, right? And because I can remember being a little girl, like in playing with my Barbie dolls, right? I used to line them up on the couch and I would teach them. So I know deep within, I'm the teacher. and all of that plays a role together, even with my coaching, because I'm teaching, right? And helping you to understand different perspectives and different ways of seeing things and ways to believe, again, firmly in yourself and what's possible for you. So I've always been teaching that message, even from a little girl. And so it's always there. It's just doing the internal work behind it.
Yeah, so good. Love that. Now, what are some of the strategies that somebody could think about for their business? If they're like, yes, I want to have a business that aligns with me, allows me to live the life that I really want to live. And it sounds like we've got this Pollyanna view, but I firmly believe 100% it is possible if you decide that you're going to do it. It is 100% possible. It's just firstly about believing in it. But once they're believing in it and they're like, right, okay, I'm ready.
Now what do I do?
What would you say? Yeah, what are the strategies that they could look to implement?
What I say is start. I think that's the biggest piece. You got to start. And start with something. Don't try to feel like or make it so that you've got to pick that perfect thing to start with, because how we always try to I want to make sure it's perfect. I want to make sure all the ducks are in a row before I do anything. Throw all of that out the window and just pick one thing and say, you know what? I'm going all in on this. This is what I'm going to do, right? And when you then put your dedication and your time and your intention on it and start with one step after the next, that's what you want to do to get yourself started. Don't try to because I see people like, I need to get my website up. I need to, do all these other little pieces because that's all the stuff that they've seen, right? Yeah. I didn't have a website when I first started. I mean, it was basically word of mouth. And I remember paying I think it was like $25 for a box of business cards from Vista Print. To say that I was a coach, right? And that was my start. I just went all in on that. It was like, I know I need a website. I'll deal with that later. But right now, what I want to do is just be able to share with as many people as possible what I do and how I can help them. And I think that piece is so missing, especially in this day and age, because everything is so digital, everything is so online, everything is, has to be polished and all of that. What about just talking to people? What about just talking to people, right? I did years of direct sales. And so the one thing I learned from direct sales is how to build relationships and just talk to people. So I used to talk to people everywhere I went. My daughter used to be so embarrassed. She's like, "Mom, you just talk to everyone." I was like, "Yeah, because that's how you build relationships, right?" But I think that same thing is true when we're building a business today. I mean, we need to get back to the connection of people and really getting to know people and connect with people and build relationships. So the first strategy is just start. Just start. Whatever that thing is you think is your passion and what you want to do, just start, right? Yeah. Definitely do your market research, right? See what's out there, see what's possible, but keep your mind focused on what you want and not so much about what everybody else is doing and how you can create it. Just how do you want it to be? How do you want it? And start creating that.
Yeah. I think there's like two really important points on what you just said that I'd love to just reflect for our listeners as well, because a moment ago we were talking about how it evolves, right? And when you're in business, it's not an instant thing. So I think that the whole perfection thing when we're starting and, trying to get it all right and have I got the right thing? And it's a fear of failure. But the thing is, there is no failure. If you've decided that you're starting and you start, it will evolve with you. It'll grow with you. There is no such thing as failure. You'll have lessons, you'll have a lot of learnings, but you're only going to learn them by actually doing it. So the thing is to, like you say, just start, because it doesn't matter what it is now. It may have iterations after iterations, which aren't to say keep on changing everything straight away when it's not working, but it will naturally evolve with you, just as you were explaining how yours has evolved and mine as well. I started off thinking I'm going to coach people on marketing strategy, and it's evolved into actually this is really about your go-to-market strategy. Like, where are you? What is it that you're offering? And the whole piece of how you get them in is the piece that comes after that. But most of my clients start finding the success before they even get to that bit, because they're naturally coming to them once they're really clear on their offering and the market they're in. So for me, it was interesting to reflect and think, wow, that's actually shifted. That wasn't the original intention I had when I started the business, but it's grown naturally that way. So, you just evolve your messaging to suit what it is that you're really doing. And it does happen naturally. That's the funny thing. It's like, as long as you let go of these reins and think, I've got to drive the horse in this direction, no, you don't. Let it happen. Because that's, true. It's just so true. And now I've just forgotten what the other thing was that you just said. I was like,
I'm going to talk about the failure thing.
You talk about
the failure thing while you're thinking of the other thing. So, and it's amazing that you say that, because I was just, talking about that last week about the whole failure thing. So when things don't work out the way that we plan for them to work out, right, and we fall into the trap of thinking that we are a failure, it just it slows down everything and it keeps us from moving forward. But I so agree with what you just said 100%, that it's not failures, it's lessons. And what I always say is that you can't fail unless you quit. If you quit, if you decide that I'm just going to give it up and I'm not going to do it, that to me is a failure. But it's not that you're a failure, but whatever you tried was a failure, right? But as long as you keep trying and you keep changing and learning and growing from your lessons, there's no way you could be a failure.
Yeah.
There's no way, right? Exactly. Because somewhere you're going to pick up what you need along the way. And there's different lessons all along the way, right? It's never the same. It's always something different that we pick up and we learn. And we'll get better with everything that we're trying. We improve on everything that we're trying. So therefore, you can never fail. You can never fail. You just get better.
Yes, exactly. I think it's that thinking it needs to be straight away the success or that, and the perfection. And that's really drawn from that need for it to succeed. And we're thinking, well, as long as it's perfect, then it's going to succeed. It's like, no, but nothing out there is perfect. I say to my clients all the time, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you've done, you can always improve on it. Therefore, there is no such thing as perfection. Even the people at the top of their game, they can always improve. Not perfect. No one is. Nothing is. There's always a way to improve. There is no such thing as 100%. So stop thinking that there's this absolute ultimate perfection that you're aiming for, and just think, okay, this is what I'm doing. Let's do it.
Do your best. Always do your best. And the key is we're always going to do our best with the knowledge that we have. right? So that's why you keep getting more knowledge and growing and learning so that then you can always do your best. And that's what you're always going to do. I am a recovering perfectionist, so I understand it. I get it.
Yeah, me too.
And I used to literally like post stuff and go, oh no, I can't put this out yet because the color's not right, the logo's not right, it doesn't say the right words. I mean, I would think of anything to keep from putting it out, but you're absolutely right. It stemmed from fear. And that fear of this is not going to work, or the fear of failure, right? And so I'm truly a recovering perfectionist. And I still have to catch myself sometimes and go, you know what? Done is better than perfect. Can we just get it out there, right? Just get it out there.
I think that's something a lot of women really struggle with, just in the way that we're brought up. But, I'm laughing because me as well, I had 20 years where perfectionism was taught into me as a marketer, because we had I worked for some big organizations at times with very strict brand guidelines. And oh my goodness, if you put the logo in and there was not this amount of space around it, and the whole thing would not be approved. So it was perfectionism on steroids, literally. Yeah. And that was, there could not be any spelling mistakes, any errors. Everything got reviewed. So I became I think I already had perfectionism in me, but it was to that level where it was a thing to be, really proud of, and a good thing, because then my stuff wouldn't be getting rejected by lawyers and by whoever, it was, oh my goodness.
That's so true.
So it was needed, but wow, what a thing to have to unlearn, in business, because you cannot run a business like that.
And you're right. Yeah, and you're right when you say that I think it's more for women than anything, right? Because that's how we're pretty much taught that things have to be right? And it's like, by whose standards, though? Yeah. By whose standards is this right created, right? I believe that right for me is right for me. Right for you could be different, right? Yes. And when we allow space and room for that to happen, is that's when we really learn, instead of trying to hold tight to something that someone else has said this is the right way, right? Well, if it doesn't fit with me, it's not the right way. Yeah. Right? So my way is the right way for me. And when we move out of that, it helps us to move away from so much perfectionism and, procrastinating because we're waiting to get it right according to what they say it should be, as opposed to what we really want it to be.
Why do you think it's harder for women? Like, what do you see as sort of unique challenges? I mean, of course, we're not going to say all women and not men at all. I know that there's always some crossover, but there are some things that I think you alluding to already that women particularly struggle with. And if we're trying to live a life where we have this, a business on our own terms, and that life where we really feel like you're in your power and in your zone, what is it that holds women back more than?
I think the thing that also makes us unique holds us back, and that is our emotions. I really do, because we are emotional creatures, right? And so we tie a lot of our emotions into how we're perceived, what people think of us, and that causes us to really struggle in this business world, right? Because think about, you're not putting something out because of what you're afraid of what others will think. So then that really hinders your business success, right? Because the thing that you need to put out is what others need, that they're willing to buy from you, but you won't put it out because you're afraid of what they will think, right? Yeah. All of that deals with emotions. And then the other thing is that we were taught that everyone should be happy with us and what we do. That ties into our emotions. So now we become these huge people pleasers. Yeah. And that prevents us from going to market the way we should, charging the fees that we should charge, because we want everyone to be happy. And so not everyone may not be able to afford our fees. So we're going to lower it from some people and, give some free stuff and all that. And all of that keeps us from being as successful as we can be in business. And what we noticed is that when women learn that emotions are good, but they're good in the right place and in the right amount, right? Even in your business, because I have a lot of emotion in my business. But I also had to realize that I had to move away from the emotions that prevent me from stepping out of my comfort zone, right? Those things that we were taught, like women should be seen and not heard. We were taught that kind of under the table, but we were taught that, right?
Yeah.
And even in
look nice. Just look nice over there in the corner.
Stand there, look nice. Don't say anything. And then again, make sure everybody's happy. Yeah. Make sure everyone's happy, and that really interferes with our growth in business. Men, on the other hand, are pretty black and white, right? Yeah. Is it a solid, good business decision? Then yes, right? We, on the other hand, are like, well, what are people going to think? And should I do it this way?
How is it going to impact everybody else if I do this?
Yeah, what's it going to do to everyone else? Right. And so that, I think, prevents us, a lot of what we were taught prevents us from just moving forward in operating in a business way. Now, of course we can, but again, that's some of the inner work that it takes. We have to move away from the fears and the doubts and the things that have been instilled in us that says we're not as good as we need to be in order for us to be savvy business owners. We're better in most cases, right? But that's the internal work that we have to do.
Yeah, it's such a journey of discovery and self-development. I think, hasn't it been incredible after, you were in corporate life as well? I had 20 years of a career there. And then, I thought, starting a business is going to be a breeze. I've been doing this kind of thing for a long time now. I'd had a sort of a side hustle. I'm not really sure I'm counting that because I kind of did it on the side. I never really was fully invested in it. And I just never even thought there were all these things I didn't know about myself, or that these things to learn, and it's amazing, isn't it?
I think that's the biggest part of entrepreneurship is the personal growth, right? Because you do get to learn so much about yourself when you're on this journey. You do, and it's not just business. That's the thing, it's not just business. Yeah. It is who you are. Right? How you show up, all of that, how you believe in yourself and what's possible for you. All of that's the internal work. And when you don't do that part, like I can lay out strategy for you, tell you do ABC 1, 2, 3, and you probably will have some success in your business. But if you don't change what you believe about yourself and what you believe is possible for yourself, all of that will be a struggle. It really will, because there's those things that are internal that says, oh, I can't show up, right? I can't promote myself. That's a big one. Like I can't promote myself because we were taught, again, be seen, don't be heard, right? And good girls, right, don't show off, all of those things. And those are things that are internally embedded in us. Until we do the work, the internal work to get rid of those things and overcome those things, we can't show up really in who we are. And for the most part, we don't know who we are yet. That's the internal work too. It's discovering who are you really. Yes. Right? So that you can show up in that way.
Yeah. I just love that. And I think it's so easy to see once you've started and you have that ability to reflect. But I also remember what it's like when you're thinking that it's not even possible. You're just thinking, well, I don't even know if I do all those things, and it's going to mean these things about me, and that's not who I am. And we're kind of just so bound up where it's almost like you're fighting yourself on this journey. And I love that you've shared with it. There's so many elements that go into it, and I guess for me at the moment, really, if we bring it back around to the having the life and the business, live and work on your own terms.
Yes.
If you're going to then sum that up in a nutshell, what would you go back and tell young Valerie?
A young Valerie?
Yes. Valerie just starting out, when you're like, right, I am going to start a business. I am going to do this thing. What would you say now with your wisdom and the hindsight that always is so valuable? What would you tell her?
Yeah. I think the number one thing I would tell her is that she is definitely more powerful than she believes. And to follow that, to follow the passion, to follow the power, the intuition, right? And allow that to guide you and lead you, because there's greatness there. There's greatness there. In spite of all the things that you may hear on this journey, in spite of all the labels that may be placed on you on this journey, never forget that you are a powerful woman. That's what I would tell her.
Oh, I love that. I was just thinking, it's amazing that, we go through these journeys. You've got such a presence and a strength, and just, I can just see it in you, a knowing of yourself, and a knowing of, hey, this is a real thing. And it's not that you've got to try to convince anyone or prove it to them. You're just there, and you're like, you already have that presence, right? And obviously that's come through so much experience and expertise, which is amazing. And, just to be able to, my hope is for my daughter that I can kind of pass on some of this to her, so she doesn't have to go through all of the things that I went through to get to a certain place. But, it is that ability to be able to help others to take some bigger steps and leaps. It's just so important. It's so important to have people like you out here, to be talking about this, to be sharing and showing what's possible, and really breaking down stuff that feels so complicated into, let's make it more simple.
I think it was meant to be simple. We make it complicated. We
definitely. I'm a great overcomplicator. Overcomplicator, if that's the word.
Yes. But it was meant to be simple, and it's something we already have. It's just pulling it out. And that's my desire for women, is that we just learn that we are powerful beings, and we can have and do whatever it is that we desire. We really can.
That. Now, Valerie, if people would like to connect with you and learn a bit more from you and follow the amazing things that you have to share with us in the world, where can they best reach you?
So best on my website, valeriepriester.com. And then I am Valerie Priester on all social media platforms. I'm on Instagram. I think I'm the Priester on Instagram. And then Facebook as well, Valerie Priester there as well. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, we will make sure we link those up in the show notes. Please reach out to Valerie and connect with her, especially if you've loved this conversation, because I can tell we've only scratched the surface of what she has to offer. We could probably talk for hours and hours. In respect of everybody's time and ears, then we won't continue talking for hours. But really appreciate your time today, Valerie. This has just been such a lovely conversation. I'm literally smiling from ear to ear the whole time. So lovely to connect, and thank you.
My pleasure being here, and thank you for allowing me to be here with you.
Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. And we will talk soon, no doubt.
Right.